Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Chancellor of the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, Dr. Lawrence B. Alexander, his cabinet, faculty, staff, and students, welcome to the 2018 Welcome Week program. I am Diamond Compton, and I am delighted to be your Mistress of Ceremonies. Today's program is sponsored by the Office of Student Involvement and Leadership, and the goal is to inspire and motivate everyone here today as we enter into a new school year. We considered the national leaders who inspired us, and few of them came to mind, but our biggest one here today is the 83rd Attorney General of the United States, Loretta Lynch. She is the only African-American woman to hold this prestigious position. At this time, please stand and remain standing for the posting of the colors by the UAPB ROTC Color Guard under the leadership of Lieutenant Colonel Oler, followed by the UAPB Vesper Choir as they sing the national anthem.
Color Guard, post!
Present. Arms.
Pulse the colors.
Order. Arms. Post. Raise it. Arms. Order. Arms. Right. Base. Over. Arch.
Now, with a warm UAPB greeting, please welcome the 89th Miss University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, Miss Angelica Perkins. After Miss UAPB speaks, we will then hear from our Chancellor, Dr. Lawrence B. Alexander.
Greetings to our Chancellor and his esteemed cabinet, family, friends, and distinguished guests. My name is Angelica Perkins. I gratefully serve as the 89th Miss University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. What a delight it is to have you with us this morning as we listen to the wise words of Attorney General Miss Loretta Lynch. It is an honor to have living history with us at this university. So today, may you soak up this experience, enjoy the speech, and cherish this knowledge. Thank you.
Good morning. It is our distinct pleasure to welcome you here this morning to welcome the Golden Lion Nation and friends to the annual Welcome Week lecture here at the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. We are beyond excited to have you here, and it is a distinct honor that we express our sincere gratitude to you for choosing to join us this morning as we start the year off refreshed and ready to roll. I would like to, at this time, thank all of you for coming out again, but I'd like to especially extend welcome and greetings to some of our distinguished guests. I'm told Mayor Shirley Washington is here. Mayor Washington, yeah, thank you for coming. We have some other public officials in the house. I believe our Representative Vivian Flowers is here. We'd like to thank you all for coming and joining in with us this morning. And I see a large group in attendance. Delta Sigma Theta's in the house. So we're delighted to have all of you. Each year, and we're delighted all of you are distinguished guests of ours today, so thank you. Each year we have the pleasure of having dynamic speakers to come to our campus for this occasion. Today we're honored to have an exceptional leader in our midst. I can think of no better way to kick off this academic school year than with the 83rd Attorney General of the United States, Loretta Lynch. We are also pleased to have Mrs. Lynch's husband with us today, Mr. Stephen Hargrove. Thank you for coming and joining with us. I must say it's quite an honor to have the first female African-American Attorney General of the United States right here on our campus in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Thank you. So we extend to you a roaring Golden Lion welcome. And we look forward to you bringing your message to us and bringing down the house as you bring words of wisdom to encourage our students as they embark on the 2018-2019 academic year. Once again, we'd like to thank all of you, all of our students for coming out in attendance. Let me see how many students are here. Raise your hand. All of our students who are here, let's give them a round of applause. We hope that you enjoy everything that this day entails and understand what a privilege it is to hear from our speaker today. So please, put away your phones for just a few minutes. Stop texting and listen. Listen, let it soak into your mind and learn and observe and appreciate this hour today. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Chancellor, for expanding our education through your support of lecture series such as this, for an opportunity to hear something that motivates us to another level. We will now have the introduction of our speaker from no other than our Student Government Association President, Ms. Kimberly Boyd.
Good morning, students, faculty, staff, and any elected officials with us today. I am Kimberly Boyd, the 2018-2019 Student Government Association President, and I have the honor of introducing a phenomenal woman, that former President Barack Obama describes as the only lawyer in America who battles mobsters, drug lords, and terrorists, and still has the reputation for being a charming people person. Attorney General Loretta Lynch. A native of Greensboro, North Carolina, Attorney Lynch, A native of Greensboro, North Carolina, Attorney Lynch was surrounded by committed family members who took an active interest in their community. The daughter of a school librarian and fourth-generation Baptist minister, Attorney Lynch was also inspired by stories about her grandfather, a sharecropper in the 1930s who helped members of his community who had no recourse under the Jim Crow system. A true personification of her ancestors' wildest dreams, Attorney Lynch went on to receive higher education from Harvard University. She soon after received her Juris Doctorate from Harvard Law School. Post-graduation, she began her career as a litigation associate at Cahill, Gordon, and Rendell, a law firm in New York. The skills and connections she gained allowed her to maneuver through the Big Apple during the 90s and serve as chief of an attorney's office in Long Island, a trial prosecutor in the Eastern District of New York, chief assistant to U.S. Attorney Zachary W. Carter, and handpicked by former President Bill Clinton, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York. By leading with a strong sense of professionalism and equality, it is no question how she acquired a reputation for being a progressive voice for our nation. Attorney Lynch has spent years in the trenches, rising through the ranks as a prosecutor, aggressively fighting terrorism, financial fraud, and cybercrime, all while vigorously defending civil and human rights. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the first Black U.S. Attorney General of the United States of America, Attorney General Loretta Lynch.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome. Thank you, Kimberly, for that kind introduction. Chancellor Alexander and the faculty, thank you for the welcome that I have felt on this campus from the moment that my husband and I came to Pine Bluff yesterday. And can I again just thank the choir for that rendition. Thank you so much for sharing your gift with us. We appreciate it so much. To all of the officials who were here, some of whom I've had the pleasure to meet and spend time with, some of whom I hope to meet after this event, thank you for coming to support not just me, but the students, as part of your ongoing support of this very, very strong community. As you know, my husband is here, so my family is here in one sense, but of course my larger family is here because my sorors are here. A group that I have leaned on for some time. During a long confirmation process, during my time in office and beyond. And for all of us, whether you wear the red and white, the pink and green, the blue and white, any other color, it's all a sisterhood. And I'm telling you, when one of us needs you, you are always there. So for all you students who are looking for an organization to join, consider, again, the Pan-Hellenic Council and all it has to offer. And whether you're a legacy or not, just choose the group that will be with you, but they will be with you through thick and through thin. And let me thank the most important people here, the students, new and returning. Welcome week, welcome. This is for you. And it's a real pleasure to be here. This is my first time in Arkansas. I do have friends from Arkansas, but we met in New York, and that's where we associate. One of my dearest friends from Little Rock has always talked about how green it is and how beautiful it is here. And being from North Carolina, I thought, well, okay, yeah. Because North Carolina is pretty nice too, but I am so glad to finally be here and spend time with you. There's also so much history here. You're surrounded by it. Let it inspire you. University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, the state's first public black college. Amazing. Amazing. The very founding of this school in the 1870s during Reconstruction reflects the spirit of the people of Pine Bluff, Arkansas, who were supporting you through this. Because even then, they knew that education was the key, was the road out of the darkness of slavery. And without that, they were not going to be able to walk it. For them, education was more than just rote learning or memorization. And I hope it is for you also, because it was a way for them to participate in the life of their town, of their state, of their country, at a time when no one had even granted them humanity 10 years before. Think about that. Think about the faith and the commitment that it took to stand up and dare to say, here on this ground we will build a college. That's who you are descended from. That's the spirit that flows through every University of Arkansas Pine Bluff student. And I salute and commend you for it. Education was the way for them to command their own destiny, and it still is. It absolutely is. And like those early students before you, you're being given what you need, not just to pass the exams and write the papers, but to control your own life. And this is your life. It is. And you will soon see that that's the best part of it. The decisions that you make are your decisions. These are your choices. The life you're building is your life. You get to choose who you will become. It's a great sense of freedom, even with the weight of the exams and the books and the schedules and the classes that you're about to pick. Relish that freedom, because you are the master of your fate. And sometimes this can be paralyzing. It can be daunting because there's a fear of making the wrong choice or making a mistake. You won't. You won't. I'm here to tell you that you won't. First, you actually won't know the import of some of your choices for some time to come. So just enjoy them right now. And also, because while the substance of what you are learning here is key, it is important, it's vital, but the actual learning process will really stay with you forever. You're learning how to think through problems, how to prioritize issues, how to focus on the most important challenges before you. And that's good, because those of us who walk outside these hallowed halls, well, we have some issues for you to work on. We have some things that we need your help with. We absolutely do. And you are the ones who are going to get us through this time. Because time and again, you've been the ones who have pulled us along the path. It has always been the youth of this country. Whether it was the civil rights movement, whether it was Black Lives Matter or Me Too, it's always been youth who have dared to stand up and say, we're not going to stand for this anymore. And an organization then gets built around you. Now, I know that to say that we are living in challenging times is to utter a profound understatement. Every day, sometimes twice a day, a new tweet or a new headline or a new book breaks the news that our leaders in Washington have lost their minds. Just lost them. They could just leave that banner up on CNN. Now, this would be of just academic interest only, or even mildly entertaining, if it did not have such serious repercussions for all of our lives. And though it is deeply frustrating, it's important to watch what's happening and to see it for what it truly is. Not just the news of the day or the issue of the day, but see this as a backlash that is so high as to be a tidal wave to 8 years of progress that saved the economy, that rid the world of Osama bin Laden, that lifted all boats and cared for all Americans. You have to see it in that bigger picture. And you can't see it as only that, as important as that is, and not also see it as a part of the larger pattern of progress and pain found within this country for generations. And it is make no mistake about it, it is a pain that is inextricably and indisputably tied to race in this country. Don't ever doubt that that's the root of what is going on today. But by seeing this pattern, by seeing it for what it is, we can overcome the armies of repression as we have done before, and we can do it again. Because in fact, we have been here before. You know, every day the news blares that it's unprecedented and it's so, and it is for this time. But when you look at the history of this country as encapsulated by things that have happened right here in Pine Bluff, we have seen this before. This great city itself has seen over the years the pattern of progress and then the rage and the violence that results. The history of the school, you've seen how power consolidates to slam shut the doors once we force them open. We know what happens. Laws are passed against us. Rules are changed to hold us out. Courts are packed to deny our words. History shows us that there is nothing new under the sun. There isn't. This great school that benefits us all, that benefits this community and this state and this country, this school began, as you all know, during Reconstruction, a time of advancement and progress, but still great pain for so many blacks and even poor whites in this state and across the country. But Reconstruction ended, as we know, and no, it did not decline of its own weight. It was not a movement that had run its course. It was ended savagely. It was ended deliberately. And the South's chance to truly grow and progress after the evils of slavery, the South's chance to advance the American ideal was traded away to ease the fears and the insecurities of Southern whites. Now, think back to what was happening then, and you'll see it. You'll see the pattern. They were afraid of economic competition from newly freed former slaves. They claimed the country's newest citizens were working cheaply and taking away their jobs. Does that sound familiar? Sound like something you've heard recently? They thought that equality for all somehow meant less for them. Does that sound familiar? Laws were passed that made voter registration difficult, if not impossible, for blacks. Does that sound familiar? Black people were not physically safe on the streets. This is over 100 years ago, subject to violence from both law enforcement and vigilantes alike. Does that sound familiar? And the issue and the struggle of the day was over who is truly an American. Who is a citizen and what does that mean? Does any of this sound familiar? So we've been here before. So we've seen this before. So we can look at the pattern then of how we came out of that. And it was not easy. Now, you know, it's only history because it happened to someone before us, not because it's never going to happen again. History doesn't mean it's over with. It doesn't mean it's done. It just means somebody else dealt with it before. We are in a new iteration of the same game. And every generation has a different version of it. And the version for this generation brings with it a pettiness that is new. I will tell you that. With our current leaders wasting time and money to erase anything with the name Obama connected to it. But I'm here to tell you, we're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. It's important who's in the White House, but when it comes to the country, this is our house. We're not going anywhere. We built it. We made it. We inspire it. We provide the soundtrack for it. We dress it. We take care of it. We clean it. We fix it when it breaks. This is our house. We're not going anywhere. And I'm here to tell you that as we watch all of this happening, we watch these waves of irrationality trying to roll back years of progress and trying to intimidate us away from claiming our due of Americans, I want you to know this. The strength of this backlash is directly proportional to the power it is trying to suppress. Now, let me say that again. The strength of this backlash is directly proportional to the power it is trying to suppress. Ask yourselves, why are voter ID laws suddenly so ubiquitous? Why? Because our votes are so powerful. That's why. We make a difference, not just in 2008 and in 2012, but last year in Alabama, and this year in Florida, and last week in Boston, and in New York, and so many other places. And ask yourselves why. In a country founded on freedom of speech and resistance to tyranny, why are some so focused on the mere sight of athletes taking a knee to highlight injustice? Just the picture of it sends them over the edge. Why? Because the other pictures, the images of Laquan McDonald and Eric Garner and Walter Scott and others losing their lives to the pain that these athletes are protesting, because those images are so disturbing as to be life-altering. So they want to move you away from those. Now, we are pushing back against these efforts to silence our voices and remove our pain from view, and young people are leading the way. From Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement, the Parkland survivors, to all of you here today. You all are the ones out in front, and your energy and your efforts are inspiring all of us. But what is also going on is the fact that our struggles now have a wider audience, and we can use that, and we have been using that. And as painful as it has been to see the viral videos of the past several years of Black civilians losing their lives at the hands of law enforcement, those images have pushed us, they have pushed our country to have a long overdue discussion on the relationship between law enforcement and the communities that they serve. They have brought it to the forefront with the same vigor as the photographs of police dogs attacking young children in the 1960s. And of course, the new viral videos of recent months that are capturing the apparently original sin of living while Black highlight the pain and the displacement felt by anyone who differs from the traditional image of power in this country, as our right to simply and quietly be while sitting, while shopping, while sleeping is questioned. They generate attention, but they really only surprise people who view the world as always and automatically welcoming to them. It's not a surprise to any of us, because these incidents aren't new, not now, and not even when it happened to me. It was the mid-1990s. I was a young prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office. I had risen to the level of branch office chief. My mother was so proud. But I was running my district's office on Long Island, New York. I supervised 30 people. I was responsible for all the federal prosecutions in Nassau and Suffolk counties, New York. 8 million people. I still tried cases as well. And one day I went to a satellite office that we kept in a courthouse along with my trial partner for the case that I was working on, a young Hispanic AUSA. And as we entered the office, we walked in and said hello to one of the federal agents who was coming to meet with one of our colleagues, another assistant U.S. attorney. We went to our conference room, began to prepare for our court appearance. And soon our colleague, whom we hadn't seen yet, our colleague came to the door and she was looking confused. And she said she was meeting with the agent that we had seen, and he had reported to her that two suspicious-looking characters had entered the office with him, and he was concerned. Maybe they were defendants, he thought. In any event, he told her he didn't think they belonged in the office. So she began to look around to see who he was talking about. She came to us for help. We start looking too. Who could this be? I'm in charge, I better know. And finally, the agent that she was meeting with came out of our office to speak to her and pointed at me and my trial partner. And you can imagine his face when she told him that I was the boss. And not only was I the boss, I was the person who would be authorizing any charges based on the work that he was doing. This isn't new. You can add prosecuting while black to the list. Now, I got an immediate apology because of my position, but that did not erase the issue. The agent was dressed down for the day. He's wearing jeans, a sweatshirt, and carrying a gun. My partner and I, my trial partner and I, are wearing business suits and carrying briefcases, yet we were the suspicious-looking ones. Now, I'm telling you, and I don't even have to tell you, this will happen to you one day if it hasn't already. It just will. And when it does, ask yourself why your mere presence has to be shuffled off the stage of life. Why do you have to disappear from the sights of people who are not of our background around you? Why? Because your presence, because our presence tells the story of the unbreakable spirit and the incredible perseverance of an entire people, all without saying a word. Remember, the strength of the backlash, directly proportional to the power it is trying to suppress. And as we look at today's efforts to limit our democracy, to limit our public discourse and the very concept of who is an American, the lesson to take from all of this is that the pendulum has swung this way before, and it likely will again. And it's not that our values are not true and enduring, but that it falls to every generation to defend those values in their own time. And now, students here at University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, now is your time. In addition to everything you're going to learn in class, take away also that the price of freedom is constant vigilance. And this task does still fall to everyone, actually. Another minister that we all know well, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who spoke here at this school 60 years ago this year, said in one of his iconic speeches, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy." Well, my friends, here we are. These are the times of challenge and controversy. And for all you history buffs out there who look back sometimes at the great achievements of the civil rights movement or the great achievements of the labor movement and thought, oh, if I could have only been a part of something that big, if I could have worked on an issue that important, here it is. Our democracy is right before you. Our democracy needs your help. The arc of the universe does indeed move towards freedom, but it needs all hands to keep it steady and true on its course. Now, at times like these, it is only natural that we look to our leaders. It is only natural. We look to them for action on the problems facing our community, our state, our country. We look to them for inspiration as we advance our common goals of liberty and equality, and we look to them for solace as we face pain and losses wrought by those who threaten our way of life. And when it comes to our leaders, their actions will tell us whether they have the desire or even the ability to live up to these expectations. They'll be judged by history and by us. But the challenge that King set forth is actually not for our leaders, because they've revealed themselves already, for good or for ill. We know where they stand on every single issue. This challenge is for all of us. How will we use our time to push back against what are ongoing efforts to chip away at the founding principles of this country? What can we do from our position, from our seat here, as student, as faculty, as citizen? What can we do to effectuate change and reclaim the country that we built? What I urge you to do is to focus your efforts on the exact things that others are seeking to suppress. Everything that they're trying to muffle about you is what you should be focusing on. Your voices, your presence, and your community. First of all, raise your voices. Raise your voices. I know you've heard that before, but what I mean is to literally place your voice within public discourse. Write your congressman, write an op-ed, write a book. Efforts to silence the voices of marginalized people are as old as our country and as recent as today, and they will only succeed if we let them. Don't ever let them silence your voice. Now, in addition to using your own voice, I'm going to tell you something that you might not like to hear, because you're also going to have to listen to other people's voices, even those with whom you profoundly disagree. Now, one conversation is not going to heal a national divide like we have today, but it will help you find those who may not be in perfect alignment with you, but with whom you can find common ground. And that's how we've advanced in this country. We're all different. We have different backgrounds, different thoughts, different views, different beliefs, but we all want the same things. We want our children to come home safe at night. We want our schools to provide for them. We want our jobs to provide for all of us. And we want a better life for everyone. We can find that common ground. You may not be able to find it with everybody, but you're going to have to use your voice as well as hear the voice of others. Now, your presence. Your presence is vital. Here, you've got the responsibilities of school, important to prepare yourself for the fights of the day and the fights to come. But I'm here to tell you that every step of the civil rights struggle was carried out by people who showed up, committed to work, without ever knowing if they would be successful or not. And there were times when I think many of them were convinced that they would not be, or they did not survive the fight to see the victory. But they showed up nevertheless. There are no guarantees. Victory did not seem inevitable, but all of those ordinary people who came together and took their stand knew that sometimes you might not be the one to get things over the finish line. Sometimes your task is to hold the line. Sometimes your task is to advance the cause until the next person can pick up the baton and carry on. We need your presence. We need your energy. We need your commitment. And where we need your presence, we need it more than ever, in the voting booth and on the ballot. That's where we need your presence. That's where change is made. That's where policies are set. That's where leaders come from. And as with all the ordinary people who fought for all of our rights over the generations, there are no guarantees, but sometimes the race itself is the victory. It absolutely is. And the community. A community is essential to carrying on the struggle. And there's a strong community here. I have felt it. I've been welcomed by it, and I will never forget all of you. Your voices and your presence come together to uplift your community, and your community provides support and inspiration for the hard work ahead. And the community is also a resource for you. It is a source of ideas and viewpoints and different ways of thinking about things and different approaches to a problem. You sit here in an outstanding academic community, a place where you can explore the ideas of the ages. Find the ones that resonate within you. Listen to and learn what motivates those that don't. But the community writ large is often the place where the real work of building a more perfect union takes place. Now, as Attorney General of the United States, I was privileged to be able to travel this great nation and engage with people on the issues of the day: law enforcement and community relations, the protection of vulnerable victims, and what people wanted and needed from the Department of Justice. I was able to talk with those who were living the very issues on which I was crafting policy. And when you're able to have that conversation, you can be truly responsive. The community gave to me, and I was able to lift that voice up into the halls of justice. Now, all of this, your voices, your presence, and your community are vital at all times, but especially now. Now, it's wonderful to have a friend in the White House, but we don't always get that. In fact, we have rarely had that over the course of our history. When we look at the accomplishments of those who fought for equality over the generations, they didn't have that at all. And I'm here to tell you that even when we do, the structure of bureaucracy is not always conducive to the actions that you want to take. I was tremendously honored to serve as your Attorney General. It was the honor and opportunity of a lifetime. And I will tell you, it was the greatest privilege of my life to work for the greatest president that we'll ever have. He worked every day and well into the night to uplift the voices and the presence in the communities of all Americans. But my friends, the backlash of today was brewing even then. We felt those headwinds in Washington every day when we went to work. And as much as we were able to accomplish, and we accomplished a lot, and I'm tremendously proud of what we were able to do, there were frustrating moments. We were able to make great headway with policies, working on our criminal justice system to make it more efficient and more fair. We made great headway with sound policies on prison reform, on reentry programs that would have made our prisons safer and given those who are coming home a true chance of reintegration with society. But because we weren't able to achieve the statutory changes, those policies remained just that, subject to change with the turn of the electoral wheel. We see that across the board. And that has led to some of the difficult times that we see every day. I know it's hard to watch, because it's hard for me to watch actions that seek to roll back the legacy of an administration that sought to bring everyone's voices to the table. But the lessons of history show us that a legacy, a true legacy, is more than just the laws and the regulations that are passed. And the true legacy of our last administration lies in the people that were empowered. It lies in the voices that were lifted. It lies in everyone who realized the possibility of change. And we will not forget that. And I see that legacy out here every day. I see it alive and moving in all of you. I see it as well as the legacy of the civil rights movement and all of those who lift their voices or take a knee in peaceful protest. I see that legacy in the efforts of all of those who joined the political system as new candidates. I see that legacy in those who are demanding that history reflect a full accounting of this country's struggles to live up to its founding ideals. I see that legacy in all of you who've chosen this great historic institution to give you the grounding that you need to carry on its great traditions. Yes, these are difficult times. Dr. King spoke here 60 years ago, and 10 years after that, on the last night of his life in Memphis, he said, "Only when it is dark enough can you see all the stars." University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, all of you are all our stars. I cannot wait to see how you illuminate this next generation. Thank you for having me. Thank you for working. Thank you so very much.
At this time, we have everyone to utilize their voice for some questions and answers.
Attorney General Lynch, let me simply say to you that you were awesome. I assure you that you captivated this audience. We saw no walking, no talking, silence. Thank you so much for visiting, and thank you for responding to a few questions.
Hello. My name is Kadir Snapper. I'm a junior at the university, majoring in psychology, and I would like to get your input on immigration.
Well, that is one of the most challenging issues that we face, but it's not a new issue. And we decided a long time ago as a country that we wanted to be a country that welcomed people who wanted to come here and join our ideals and work to make America a better place. Whether or not you came here, your ancestors came here voluntarily or not, as mine did, we have all been able to take advantage of the benefits of America, and we stand as a beacon to the rest of the world for people who are suffering and people who essentially need help to escape either violence or other regimes. We have let the immigration debate leave the ideals of America and get caught up in the politics of America. And so we now have a system that is basically jingles and slogans and catchphrases that do not capture either the complexity of the issue or the goals of our immigration policy at all. We've always, every administration has wanted strong borders. Every administration has wanted to make sure that people who seek asylum truly deserve it. Everyone has wanted to make sure that people who come here to contribute and not to harm other people. And there have always been steps in place to manage that. So what I see happening is the hijacking of this issue by those with a political agenda to drive support for that cause or others, without any thought to the collateral consequences of that. We've already seen that economically, immigrants improve America. They bring value to the country. And the current immigration restrictions and crackdowns have caused several businesses to note that they're having difficulty obtaining employment, whether it's seasonal or even permanent. We've seen people who are unable to manage small farms. In my home state of North Carolina, there's several family farms that are about to go out of business because the seasonal workers are not able to make their way through the red tape that they've been able to traverse for 16, 17 years. So I think we have to look at it as, how do we come up with a policy that is consistent with our values, protecting the country, but as well as keeping open the promise of America for everyone, and it can be done.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for your presentation today. My name is Janice Laws. I am a senior at the university majoring in political science. And my question to you is, how do you prepare yourself to be in a position to where you're handpicked by one of the most powerful men in the country?
Well, what I will tell you is that I think while every I don't know if every federal prosecutor, certainly almost every United States attorney harbors a vision of themselves as the Attorney General, but there are no guarantees. I was fortunate enough to be in the Department of Justice at a time when talent was recognized as coming from everywhere. I was fortunate enough to have a president who thought that strong women were an asset to his cabinet, who knew that people of color were an asset to the country and his cabinet, and he wanted that kind of inclusion. I was first fortunate enough when I was the U.S. Attorney in Brooklyn in the late 90s, because former President Clinton also had that view and picked more U.S. attorneys of color and who were women than any other president before him combined. So I was fortunate in that regard. And while I knew that it was something that I would love to have the opportunity to do, there are no guarantees for it. And as with every position, it's great to get a title and have, the opportunity to really serve your country and serve. But that's not the defining factor in how you should operate your career. I've always found that rather than seeking a title, I was seeking to have a particular effect or a particular impact on my country, on my job, on the people in my district. And for me, I was fortunate that the impact that I was trying to effectuate in my office was consistent with what the president was looking for when he needed someone to replace Eric Holder when he stepped down. So you can never really game it, as they say. You never really know. And during my interview with the president, we had a great conversation. I remember saying to him, I would love to be your attorney general, but I know that if what I'm bringing to the table is not what you need, then you will make another wonderful selection, and I'll continue to serve you from my district to the fullest of my abilities. So that was how I approached the process when it came open, and ultimately I was fortunate enough to be selected.
My name is Gary Jones, DMC coordinator for Jefferson County, a junior. My question is in regards to the war on drugs. How has it dramatically changed over the years? Even though it's ended, how does the Black community combat the issues that it's dealing with now? And we look at the opioid epidemic, and it's a mental and a psychological effect, but in the 80s and the 70s, it was a criminal act. So how do we combat that now?
Well, I think you raise a very important point, and it illustrates the way that different administrations have different approaches to that position. When I first became a prosecutor in the early 90s, I was a narcotics prosecutor. And we were still at sort of the tail end of the official, quote-unquote, war on drugs. And at the federal level, we enforced very harsh mandatory minimums, which meant that anyone who got caught in a dragnet of a case, whether they were the kingpin or the lowest level person, was going to be punished equally harshly. And those of us who were working at that time saw that that really wasn't helping, it wasn't effective, and it was not a way to dispense justice, where you would hold people accountable based on the measure of what they had really done. I was fortunate enough to work in an office in the Brooklyn U.S. Attorney's Office where the leaders, even when I was a young lawyer, felt that way and gave us the flexibility to have flexible charging and manage it in a way that was best for the case as opposed to a strict by-the-numbers approach. And over time, that approach slowly gained traction. The fear that people had felt when they first saw the crack epidemic. I don't know if you all recall, but in the 80s, a basketball player named Len Bias was playing for the University of Maryland, just been signed by Maryland, collapsed and died during practice. He had heart problems, but his death was aggravated by recent cocaine use. And that sent fear through a lot of communities, including the minority community. And when people legislate based on fear, they often do not make good decisions. But we had time to see the impact of the way in which, at least federally, we were handling narcotics cases. And the push quickly came to, for example, even out crack cocaine sentencing. We're still not there, but that's been going on since the 90s. And I was fortunate enough, again, to be in an office that recognized that. And when President Obama was elected, to work in an administration that worked very specifically on that problem. We also knew that justice is more than just prosecuting. Justice is trying to prevent people from falling into the path of addiction in the first place, whether it's opioids or heroin or crack. And so we were given the freedom and the discretion and the directive, really, to focus on diversion programs that would place addicted criminals into rehab and let them deal with the underlying issue that sent them into crime, while still holding them accountable. So I think that, and the opioid epidemic is something that we've seen in the last 5 or 6 years, opioid combined with heroin. We have advanced to the point where we do recognize the illness component of that. It has come too late for the harm that we did in the crack prosecutions of 10 and 20 years ago, when it was really the same thing. But we have come to that point. Although I'm starting to see a little bit of a backlash from communities that are financially strapped at the costs of that. We have to make a national commitment to viewing addiction as a whole person problem. That the criminal justice system is but one part of managing. My concern is that the war on drugs seems to be returning because the current administration's views are very similar to those late 1980s views that we were able to move away from. And I think that's an area in which we have to really be vigilant. And while we may not be able to change things in Washington now, we can look at local issues. Many states were able to come around to a more helpful way of thinking on narcotics also. So we can support movements there for diversion courts. We can support movements for rehab as part of court-ordered accountability and sentencing. We can support reentry efforts that provide rehabilitation, that provide health care. One of the things that we worked on in the Obama administration at the federal level was trying to make sure that everyone who left federal prison knew how to sign up for Medicare and Medicaid, knew how to get an Affordable Care Act health care plan so they could actually get a treatment option. And so by working across the disciplines like that, we were able to make progress. That thinking is no longer in Washington, but that doesn't mean it can't be here. Thank you.
My name is Quiz McClain. I am a junior at the university majoring in education. My question is, you served as the Attorney General under former President Barack Obama. What would you say is the greatest lesson you learned under his leadership?
I would say the greatest lesson I learned from President Obama was to surround myself with smart people and listen to them.
Good morning, sir. My name is Kamara Seals, and I'm a member of Commonwealth Alumni and also a 24-year alumni of this great institution. My question is about Brett Kavanaugh. We know he will be detrimental for our country. I'm concerned that we're not taking an active role as a whole to resist the nomination, to demand that the hearings be halted because of the circumstances. So what can you say to us that we can say to those, everybody in here has a sphere of influence. So I'm just concerned we're not getting that message out because of the long-term implications that him being confirmed to that court will have. So can you give us some, what do we do?
I think you've highlighted an issue that is brought to light by the Kavanaugh nomination now, but really is across the board. Because it's not just a Kavanaugh nomination, but there will be other nominations. There have been other nominations to lower courts that are going to have lifelong repercussions for people in some ways that we haven't really cataloged yet. And not to dissuade you, but I think that one thing that I would hope that people will take from this is the way to talk to people and give a practical example when we use the phrase, elections have consequences. They absolutely have consequences. And I don't mean to put you off with that, but oftentimes I still talk to people when I'm in my home state of North Carolina a lot with my family, people who say to me, it doesn't matter, for me to vote because they're all the same. It doesn't make a difference. And trying to get people to see that it does is difficult. And so, for one thing, this can be a cautionary tale. On the practical side of it, I will tell you that there's very little that can be done if the majority has votes. When I went to Washington, there were so many things that we were working on, we were trying to get through, from criminal justice reform, as I mentioned, to a host of other things, and not getting the votes to get it passed, or not being able to influence those who had the votes, meant that it was not going to happen. And that's why we saw President Obama move by executive order on so many things. Immigration reform, that the young man asked about earlier. There had been a package worked out, a bipartisan package worked out, but it got held up by one group, a faction of a group really, and they were not able to get it passed. And that frustrated months of planning and thinking, and frankly has had a detrimental impact on people's lives, our economy, and the country. So the harsh reality is that there are going to be things that happen that if you cannot change votes, you may not be able to change the impact of that one thing. That doesn't mean that you can't write to your senators or call them. They have people in their offices designated to take phone calls. It doesn't mean you can't call them and express your view. You are a constituent. It does not matter whether your senator is red or blue. They are obligated to represent you. They're obligated to listen to you. And I think sometimes we may feel that If it's the other party in power, it might not be doing good, or it's not worth it to express our views. It's always worth it. Use your voices. So call, write. There are organizations that are working to stop the nomination. You can support those organizations. But I will tell you that as a practical matter, this is one of those things that is a result of elections. And it is a result of when a group has the votes, they can deny Merrick Garland and they can rush Brett Kavanaugh through. And so it can be a cautionary tale in that respect also. But it doesn't mean that you cannot make those calls, write those letters, and support those organizations.
Hello, my name is Leon Jones III. I'm a freshman here at the university majoring in political science. My question for you today is, what advice do you have for people of color wanting to pursue careers in public service?
Well, for me, public service has been a benefit in ways that I really couldn't have imagined when I started on that path. I would say for your career in public service or in any field, the first thing to do is to get a good foundation here at school, get a grounding, so that you have the ability to pursue different options. And here at this university is really a safe space to try out so many things and find out what, not just what you like, find out what you don't like. I mean, public service means so many things, from law enforcement to public safety, to environmental work, to policy work. And so seek out opportunities either through clubs here or through internships. When you're young, sometimes they don't pay, and that can be difficult, I understand that. But if you're thinking of an interest in a particular type of public service, see what opportunities local offices have to have a college student come in and help out a few hours a week. See if you can get college credit for that. Maybe if it's not a course, maybe you can craft an independent study. You may not be able to do it your freshman year because you're likely to have a lot of required courses to take, and the hours won't be there. But as you move through your college career, explore those different options. And you'll find things that you hadn't even thought of today. By the time you're a senior, will be part of your landscape. And good luck.
And we anticipate your next visit.
Thank you so much.
Now we will have closing remarks from Dean Kara Brown.
On behalf of the Office of Student Involvement and Leadership and Student Activities, we thank you so much for joining us and being in attendance for today. Without your continued support, we would not be able to maintain programs such as this. Again, we appreciate Attorney General Lynch for your wise words and charge as we kick off our 2018-2019 Lecture Series Speakers Program. Now we will bring back to the stage, or excuse me, to the podium, Lieutenant Colonel Oler to assist with the retiring of colors. Please stand and respect our program as we have the UAPB ROTC Color Guard program retire the colors.
Color Guard, post.
Freeze it. Arms. Command permission to retire the colors.
Retire the colors.
Order. Arms. Post. Freeze it. Arms. Order. Arms. Right, face, forward, march.